It says, when they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, ask what I shall do for you before I am taken from you. And Elisha said, please, let there be a double portion of your spirit on me. And he said, you have asked a hard thing. Yet if you see me as I am being taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if you do not see me, it shall not be so. And as they still went on and talked, behold, chariots of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And Elisha saw it. And he cried, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. And he saw him no more. Today I know that you came in this place, many of you needing a miracle. And so today I want to talk to you from this passage about the double portion that Elisha received. But you see, before we can expect miracles in our lives, we got to be people of character. So today I want to talk to you about your character. I want to talk to you about our character, my character, about the people that God has called us to be. Because if we want to see great miracles, we got to be people of great character first and foremost. So I believe that God brought you here today for a reason. So I hope you came expecting. I know that maybe you came in here just want to check a box off a list, but I want to tell you right now, God wants to speak something and release something in our lives today. So right now, as you're seated, I want you to believe that God has something for you. And in an act of belief, I want you to turn to your neighbor and I want you to tell him, say, I'll take a double. Tell your neighbor, say, I'll take a double. And you can be seated this morning. How's everybody doing today? Woo, come on somebody. Say, I'll take a double. So, hey, my name is Caleb if you're new, and I'm the lead pastor here at Project Church, and just so thankful to be here today to kick off this new series. If you're here today for the first time, you came to a great week as we're kicking off this series we've titled Miracles. We're going to be going through the life of Elisha, and I'm really excited. I believe God has a great word for us today. But how many of you love In-N-Out? We got any In-N-Out fans in this place? Come on. So my wife, she's like all healthy, and so she's like, I don't do burgers. And I'm like, girl, burgers are American, and I'm American, right? So I'm about burgers. And so once a week, I got to go to In-N-Out by myself because my wife won't go there. And so once a week, I go through and I have alone time. I go through the drive-thru. I get me a burger and some fries and a drink, pink lemonade. Come on, somebody. And then I just hang out by myself and eat some In-N-Out. I believe In-N-Out is going to be at the marriage supper of the Lamb. Come on. So, but listen, every time I go to In-N-Out, I roll up. And you know, the In-N-Out menu is very small, right? You either order a burger, a cheeseburger, or a what? A double. And so when I roll up, I don't need a burger. I don't need a cheeseburger. I need a double. And so I don't think I've ever gone to In-N-Out without ordering a double. Why? Why would I take a single when I could have a double? And so I'm all about the double. And so today I want to talk to you. The title of my message is, I'll take a double. Because I believe that God wants to release something in this place. He wants to release something over your lives and over my life. But I also believe that in order for us to see great miracles, we have to be people of great character. So the kickoff of this series today is going to be about our character. Because this series is about the life of Elisha and having great faith, but we can't live as people of great faith unless we're people of great character. It always starts there. And so I want to start today with our character. And I believe that this story of Elisha, this is kind of the handing off of the baton, so to say. This story that I just read, and I'm going to read more of it here in a bit, is where Elijah, who had been the prophet of Israel for several decades, has been training up Elisha to take over for him. He knew that he was about to leave. Now, let me set this up. This is about 150 years after David has been the king. Elijah has now served a few kings. Elisha ends up serving a few kings. It's 800 BC, so 800 years before Christ comes onto the earth is when this takes place. And Israel has come out of Egypt through the wilderness and into the promised land. They've established themselves as a kingdom, as a nation. They've gone through a few kings now. And Elijah, there was always a prophet that spoke as the mouthpiece of God, and it had been Elijah for a while. But he began to raise up Elisha because he knew that God was getting ready to take him, that he was going to leave, and he needed someone to follow him up. And so today, we're looking at this story where Elisha basically gets the baton passed to him, where he becomes the prophet of Israel. And I believe this story and how Elisha responds in this story and how Elisha receives this baton, so to say, really describes the type of character that you and I need to have. That we would be people of character. You see, you can accomplish great things, but if you do them in wrong ways, then they're literally meaningless and empty. Now, we're in the middle of the Olympics. How many have been enjoying the Olympics? Man, I've been pumped up, USA leading the medal count. And so I've been watching it every night. I love the Olympics, but there's been some drama in the Olympics. And not like positive drama, but negative drama. There's been some issues because several athletes have been accused of doping, taking performance enhancers, steroids, these kinds of things. And so a few days before the Olympics kicked off, actually a few different athletes were reinstated because they fought against these allegations and what the tests showed. And so they were reinstated. They were able to compete. And so there's been some drama, right? Now, when they win medals, some people would say that they're tainted, that they're not legit. Now, how many of you remember Barry Bonds, right? I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. Barry Bonds, most home runs in the history of Major League Baseball, and yet he has not been elected to the Hall of Fame. They say there's an asterisk next to all of his statistics. Why? Because he's been caught, accused of. There's all kinds of evidence showing that he took performance enhancers. You remember Lance Armstrong? Some of you were Lance Armstrong fans back in the day. He won 6 or 7 Tour de France's. Live Strong was huge. Everybody was rocking the yellow wristbands, and Nike was pushing his stuff everywhere. Then it comes out that he had himself been doping, taking, performance enhancers, and now all those titles have been stripped, and who even knows where he is? Because we can accomplish some great things, but if we do them in wrong ways, it always ends up broken and meaningless. And so I want to tell you, I know a lot of you want to do great things. I hope you want to do great things with your life. I want to do great things with my life. But it has to start with our character. Because if we aren't people of character, then what we do won't matter. You see, we look at Elisha's life here, and we see his life, and we see him taking over, becoming the next prophet, and he sets an amazing example of character. Billy Graham said this: when character is lost, all is lost. I love the directness of this, because the one thing that we can control in this life is our character. You can control how you live, how you operate, how you respond to situations in your life. So we got to care about who we're becoming. You and I have to care about who we're becoming, about the character in which we're living. So let me jump in here today as we look at this story from Elisha's life and him becoming the next prophet. I believe he set a great example of what it looks like to care about who you're becoming. So number one, when you care about who you're becoming, you choose spirit over stuff. You choose spirit over stuff. So when I was in college, I had an opportunity to intern in Olympia, Washington. I don't know if you've ever been to the Pacific Northwest. It's a beautiful place. I was 21 years old, and I had an opportunity to go up and intern for a summer at a church there. Now, Pray for me because tomorrow I am driving to Seattle with a van and 3 children, 4 and under, 12 hours. So I need your prayers. But we're going back to the Pacific Northwest. My sister is getting married, so it's going to be a fun trip. But I was up there for an internship. This was, 14 years ago, if you can believe that. I just turned 35. Time flies, doesn't it? But 14 years ago, I was 21. I'm getting paid $100 a week to intern at this church. Big bucks, big money, right? And so I was on a tight budget. And I get there to this church, and they had a basketball league. And I'm like, oh my goodness, basketball league. Yes, I love basketball. Let's play. But I realized I didn't bring my basketball shoes. Not sure how I did that, but I didn't bring any. So I had to come up with an alternative. I need to go buy some shoes, but I had no money, right? I'm on a tight budget. And then I had heard that this shoe had just come out at Payless, and they were Shaq brand shoes. Legit basketball shoes with Shaq on them, right? Shaq brand shoes. I roll up to Payless, $19.99 for a pair of basketball shoes. I'm like, I'm about that, right? I'm on a budget. So I purchase the Shaq shoes, put them on. And I'm like, okay, these are kind of interesting feeling, but we'll try them out. First game, I'm running around. They are the most uncomfortable shoes I've ever worn in my life. I start getting blisters. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. About halfway through the game, I'm running, and I plant and push off, and the entire sole rips off the shoe. So I'm playing with a slipper on and a basketball shoe. I'm running around. I tried to play the rest of the game with the slipper. It was awesome, right? But I realized something right there. I realized that these shoes were just a cheap knockoff of real basketball shoes. And here's what I've seen in our lives and in Christian culture today is we choose the stuff of this world to fill the void in our lives. And it's just a cheap knockoff. It never fulfills us. It never meets our needs when we could have the Spirit of God. We choose the stuff of this world over the Spirit of God, and it's a cheap knockoff. It may fulfill us for a moment or in an instant, but it leaves us empty and broken and hopeless and feeling purposeless. But the Spirit of God, when you choose that, it fills you with hope. It fills you with purpose. It fills you with a future. And yet, today we choose stuff over Spirit. We choose a cheap knockoff. And it never does what only God can do in us and for us. Francis Chan said this: our lack of intimacy with God causes a void that we try to fill with the frailest of substitutes. You see, the Spirit, when we choose God's Spirit, that's what fills the void. But what we do in this culture, and Christians do all the time, is we try to fill it, the void that we have, because we don't have that true connection to the Spirit of God. We choose stuff, and it's a frail substitute. It's a weak substitute. It can never accomplish and do in our lives what only the Spirit of God can do. We got to choose Spirit over stuff. Now, let me look at verse number 9. I read it to you already. But I want you to see when Elijah says to Elisha, what do you want? What can I do for you before I'm taken? What do you want from me? This is what Elisha says. He says, let there be a double portion of your Spirit on me. I want you to notice that Elisha didn't ask for Elijah's stuff. He asked for Elijah's spirit. You hear me? He didn't ask for his stuff. He asked for his Spirit. And so I want to ask you, do most of your prayers revolve around the stuff you can get from God or the Spirit of God that you want in you? Too many of us are asking for the stuff that God can give us when we could have His own Spirit within us and changing us and moving us. We choose the cheap knockoff, the stuff, when we could have the Spirit. Those who care about who they're becoming, who care about their character, who care about the people that they're being turned into, to always choose Spirit over stuff. Elisha said, I don't want your stuff, Elijah. I want your Spirit. The Spirit of God that's in you and upon you, I choose that. Number 2, today, when you care about who you're becoming, You refuse to quit. You don't quit. You know, I have a 4-year-old. He's almost 5. And he tends to quit quickly. I have a quitter. Now, I know that's like harsh. You're like, Caleb, you're a terrible dad. No, I'm a good father. It's who I am. Okay. I just got inspired today. I'm just going to sing it all day. I got my kids singing that to me. Okay. But, so my son, I do something with my boys. I drop them off at preschool most days. And if you guys are on Snapchat, maybe you've seen this because I've done it a few times on there. But most days I drop them off and I always say, when they're getting out of the car, last thing we do, I say, who are we? And they go, we're Coles. They always respond. And they go, and what do we do? And they go, we win, right? I'm trying to raise winners, y'all. God is a God of victory. And so I'm going to raise some children of victory. I know some of you are like, that's terrible. You're so focused on winning. Amen, come on. I want winners in my house, okay? All right, some of you think I'm a terrible parent. It's all good. I don't care. So listen, yesterday we're at the gym by our house, and there's 2 basketball courts, and I have a membership there, and they're cool, they're chill. So let me bring in my boys, and they run around and, you know, goof around. And I try to get them to do little basketball drills. They ain't having it yet. You know, they're 3 and 4, but I'm working on it. And so they're just goofing off, and so finally we're about to leave, and I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to race. Okay, we're going to race. And so I have my 3 and 4-year-old go on the baseline. And I stand at half court, I put a ball down. I'm like, first one to run and touch the ball wins. Now, I know that my 4-year-old is faster than my 3-year-old. I've seen them both run their fastest, and the 4-year-old wins. So I say, go. And the 3-year-old beats him. He wins. I'm like, okay, that was weird. Okay, go back to half court. All right, go. 3-year-old wins again. When the 3-year-old wins, the 4-year-old says, Dad, I can't do it, Dad. I can't do it. I'm not fast. I'm not fast enough, Dad. I can't do it. I'm like, go back. You are fast enough. You can do it. Go back and do it again. So I say, go. They race again. The 3-year-old wins again. 3 times in a row, the 3-year-old wins. Now, I'm standing there, and I know some of you are like, that's not a big deal. No, because here's the thing. My 4-year-old wasn't running as fast as he could. And he didn't want to do it anymore. And so every race, he actually lost by more because he would try even less. And so finally, I'm standing there, and I'm like, bro, like, you can beat him. I say it to my kids all the time, bro, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you doing? You can beat him. He's like, Dad, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like, yes, you can. Here's the deal. You either win this next race, or you will never be able to play Pokemon Go on my phone ever again. In fact, I will delete the app right now, boy. Right now, I'll delete it. You'll never see it again. He's like, Dad, no, you wouldn't do that. I'm like, I would do that. If you don't win right now, I will delete the app. And he's like, okay, Dad, okay. And they go back to the baseline. I say, ready, set, go. And my 4-year-old destroys my 3-year-old. Beats him by a good 15 feet. He ran faster I'd ever seen him run. So here's the thing. We are in a culture of quitters. And it starts when we're young. My 4-year-old already wanted to quit, telling me he can't do something that I know he can do. And I want to challenge you because I think too many of us are quitting at things in our lives, and God is calling us to persevere, to press on. And some of you came into this room ready to quit today at something. My marriage is just not going well. You know what? I think I should just move on and try something else. You've been thinking that. This job, man, it's just too much work. It's too much work. There's probably an easier job out there for me. This class, man, it is too hard. I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. I'm going to try something less challenging. You know, it's so easy to quit. It's so easy to take the outs that we see along the way. But I believe people of character persevere. They press on. They refuse to quit. They keep going when things are tough. They keep pressing on and saying, God, if you brought me to this, you'll bring me through this, and I'm going to keep going. So what does Elijah do? Let me show you how Elijah didn't quit, or Elisha didn't quit. Elijah says to Elisha, and this is in verse number 1 of chapter 2. I didn't read this yet, but he says, please stay here, for the Lord has sent me as far as Bethel. But Elisha said, as the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. Verse 2, Elijah said to him, Elisha, please stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho. But he said, as the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So they came to Jericho. Then Elijah said to him, please stay here, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan. But he said, as the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So the two of them went on. What was happening here? Elijah knows he's about to pass the baton to Elisha to be the next prophet of Israel. He knows that this is what's happening. He knows they're only days away, most likely, from this taking place. And so he puts Elijah through a series of tests. Not only that, but he brings Elijah on a journey. It was the journey of Israel from Egypt into the promised land. In fact, if you look at this, there's correlation to every place that he brings Elisha. It starts in Gilgal, which is Egypt. And then they go on to Bethel, which means house of God, which signified Mount Sinai, or where Moses got the 10 commandments from God. So this is Israel coming from Egypt on their way out. Then they go on to Jericho, which was Israel just leaving the wilderness. Jericho was their first battle where they walked around the walls and they fell down. And then he brings them all the way to the Jordan. And the Jordan was, once they crossed the Jordan River, Israel, they had entered into the promised land. And so here's what Elijah does. He brings Elisha on this wilderness journey, this from slavery through the wilderness into the promised land. And at every place he says to him, you can stay here. He doesn't actually even give him an option. He says, I need you to stay here. I want you to stay here. What he's doing, he's giving Elisha an out. He's saying, look, this is a big deal what you're about to do. You're about to become the voice of God, the prophet of God, the mouthpiece of God, and I'm going to give you some outs because you maybe aren't cut out for this or you don't want to do this. And so at any moment you can bounce. And yet every time, what does Elisha say? He says, no. He says, no. He says, as the Lord lives and as long as you live, I will not leave you. Every place he says, I'm with you all the way. I'm with you to the end. Some of us are always looking for a way out. And those of you that came in here thinking about quitting, God wanted you here because he wanted to tell you, don't quit. It's not over yet. Some of you have been sober for months, but you've been thinking about quitting, about going back. It's too hard. You just want to medicate. You want to forget about all your problems. God's saying, don't quit. Don't quit. I still got you. I still have a plan for you. See, when you care about who you're becoming, you won't quit because you know that if you keep pressing forward, God will bring you to the promised land. He'll bring you to the great things that he has for you. But if you quit, you'll never know what you could have had. You'll never experience what you could have had. Don't quit. You may not see the reward yet, but don't run from the struggle just because you can't see it. Don't run. God grows us through the struggle. He develops us through the struggle. He makes us into the people he wants us to be through the struggle. When you care about who you're becoming, you refuse to quit. Number 3, when you care about who you're becoming, you believe for greater things. Everybody say greater things. Verse 10, and he said, you have asked a hard thing. Yet if you see me as I am being taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if you do not see me, it shall not be so. So Elijah is talking to Elisha, and he says, you've asked a hard thing. Because Elisha asked him, he says, give me a double portion of your spirit. I don't want your stuff. I want your spirit. I want a double portion of your spirit. And Elijah responds, he says, you've asked a hard thing. That's a tough thing. But you know what? If you see me go, then it'll be so. If not, it won't. So I want to ask you, why do we not believe for greater things in our lives? Why are you not believing for greater things? So many of us, we're in a situation or in a struggle, and we try to spiritualize it. We go, oh, this is just my thorn in the side. Like I'm like Paul. It's my thorn in the side is just who I am. It's just always going to be like this, and I'm okay with it. Now, maybe God has given you peace, and maybe he is telling you that, but maybe you're afraid to ask for a miracle because you don't want to be let down. I think too many of us aren't asking for miracles because we're afraid that if it doesn't come to pass, then we'll be disappointed. But it's not up to us. The result is not up to us. The Bible says, ask and you shall receive. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. If you ask with right intentions, Scripture tells us, then you'll receive what you're asking for. But too many of us, we won't even ask for fear of what we might not get. And people say to me all the time, like, Caleb, we just don't see miracles in the church anymore. There just aren't miracles happening like they did in the New Testament and in Scripture. And I'm like, no, you're just hanging out with the wrong people. And maybe you're not asking for the miracles that you want to see. You see, I've been surrounded by and I've been hanging out with people that are seeing miracles. I've seen God move. I've seen God touch people's lives. I've seen God heal bodies, open eyes, blind eyes, touch infirmities. We got to hang out with the right people, number one, and we got to believe for greater things, number two. You got to start believing. We don't see miracles because we don't ask for them. You know, I believe that God began to shift something in our church a few months back when we started doing these prayer and praise slides. And you know, maybe you haven't paid that much attention, but I watch it and I see it. And when we started putting up the praises and we started putting up the prayers, something began to shift in our church. And all of a sudden there was a greater expectancy, where people started writing down their needs and believing that God was going to answer them. And that's the kind of church I want to be a part of, and that's the kind of church I want to lead. I want to be a part of a church that believes for greater things, that believes that God isn't done with Sacramento, that downtown isn't too far gone, that God can't move in this city in a great way, that we can't see revival and see people come to know Jesus and see lives transformed by God, that we can't see people set free from addiction and set free from all kinds of situations and circumstance. I want to be a part of a church that believes for greater things. Do you? Do you want to be a part of a church that believes that God still works miracles? And that's why we're praying. That's why we put those needs up, because we want you to see the needs and want you to see when God answers the needs, because it raises our expectation. But some of you have just come to terms with, this is just who I am. This is just my lot in life. This is just my circumstance. This is just my situation forever. But I want to tell you right now, it's time to start believing for greater things. Greater things for your life, greater things for your family, greater things for your job, greater things for your future. Believe. Fourth and finally, we're going to go. When you care about who you're becoming, you move on from who you were to who you're meant to be. From who you were to who you're meant to be. You know, I love this part of the passage where Elisha sees Elijah go. Elisha sees Elijah taken, and it literally, horses of fire and a chariot of fire come down, and then he goes up in a whirlwind, it says. How many would like to see that? That's how I want to go. Like, God, take me in a chariot of fire. That would be dope, right? Like, Elijah and Jesus, the only ones that didn't die. Like, God actually just took him. He never even died. He just went. And Elisha sees this. He witnesses Elijah go. Powerful moment. Powerful moment. But then, after he sees him no more, right? It says, and he saw him no more. He's gone. Verse number 12. It says, then he took hold of his own clothes and he tore them in two pieces. The Message version actually says he tore his clothes up. He went all Hulk Hogan on his stuff. You guys remember Hulk Hogan? Randy, Macho Man Savage. Those were the good old days of wrestling, right? Hulk Hogan, every wrestling match, man, he walks in and rips his shirt in half to reveal the spray-on tan. But Elisha does this. And I believe this is symbolic. This is significant. This is no small moment. When he takes off his cloak and he rips it in two, leaves it, and picks up the new one. He took up the cloak of Elijah. The cloak of Elijah that had fallen from him. And then he goes. It says he goes back to the bank of the Jordan. He took the cloak of Elijah that had fallen from him and he strikes the water, saying, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" And when he had struck the water was parted to one side and to the other, and Elisha went over. You see, what happened was when they first crossed the Jordan, Elijah took his cloak and touched the water, and it was parted, and Elijah and Elisha walked on dry land, walked through this river. And so now, Elisha has asked for the double portion. He sees Elijah go, which Elijah said, if you see it, then you're going to receive it. And so he goes, I got to test this out, right? I got to try this out. So he picks up the cloak, puts it on, takes it over, touches it to the Jordan River, and it parts. He walks across. And we actually see in Scripture double the amount of miracles that Elijah performed, Elisha performed, are recorded in Scripture. You see, he received that double portion. But I believe this is for some of you today, because for many of us, we've been labeled by people. We've had a cloak on, and people have told us we're a failure. People have told us we're not good enough. People have told us we'll never be a good husband. We'll never be a good wife. We'll never be good parents. People have told us you don't have enough talent. You're never going to do anything significant with your life. You're never going to accomplish anything. You're never going to contribute to society. And people have told us these things about us, and so many of us have begun to believe them. We said, that's just who I am. That's just my lot in life. This is just who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. But I believe what God is saying today, it's time to move on from who you were to who you're meant to be. It's time to take off that cloak, rip it up, and put on the new one. Put on the double portion. Put on who you're meant to be and walk forward in faith and walk forward in hope and walk forward believing that God has something greater for your life. That's who you were, but that's not you any longer. That you're going to take it off, you're going to rip it up, and you're going to move. You're going to move because God says, I've meant you to be so much more. I've defined you. I've put my label upon you, my fingerprint upon you. And it's not one of failure. It's not one of circumstances that you're defined by, but it's one that says, no, you have a hope. You have a future. You have great things in store, that greater things are still in store for your life. God's saying it's time to rip off that cloak. Rip it up, man. Go Hulk Hogan on that thing. And put on the new one. Put on the double portion. Put on the new cloak that says, no, you're going to be a great wife. You're going to have an amazing marriage. You're going to be a great parent. No, you're going to have a great job. You're going to have a great future. God is defining you differently today. And so some of you, though, you got to stop buying into what people have said. Stop buying into what people have labeled you as. Stop buying into what people have told you about yourself. Rip it off and put on the new double portion that God has for you. Put it on today. You see, Jesus came, and some of you in this place, you've been defined by your sin. For too long, you've walked around, you'll be like, I'm a failure. You don't know what I've done, Caleb. You don't know where I've been. If you know the places that I've been, you wouldn't want me here. And for too long, you've been defined by your sin, but God sent his son, Jesus. He sent him down to this earth, and he paid the ultimate price for you and for me so that you could remove and rip up that old cloak that says sinner and put on that new cloak that says righteous, that says saved, that says set free. Some of you are bound in shackles to the sin of your past, and God right now is saying, I came to give you freedom. Rip it off and put on the new creation you are in me. Today's your day. Some of you today to give your life to Jesus for the first time. To surrender your heart to Jesus for the first time. Would you bow your heads with me across this place?